All right, my name is Rich Schmidt. I'm here with Bob Flood. We're at the Nicholson Library at Linfield College. It's January 21st, 2020. Thank you so much for joining us today, Bob. We appreciate this. We're here to talk about you today and about your connection to Linfield and the football program, but we're going to start a little earlier than that. So tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and kind of before Linfield, where you were and what you were doing.
Well, we were moved from Southwest Washington when I was about 5 years old for the folks who work in the shipyards from a small town. And we lived in St. John's in North Portland, and the folks worked at the shipyards. My mom was an electrician, and my dad was a tugboat driver. And so they had a lot of facilities. We lived with his older sister or younger sister for about a month or so before they finished the house across the street from a swimming pool and a public park. So I grew up loving all sports activities, whether it was ping pong, shuffleboard, swimming, any type of games they had in the public park system. But we never had any sports where I grew up. The grade schools didn't have basketball teams or football teams or anything, and it was grades 1 through 8. But I spent my Saturdays a lot of times watching the Catholic youth programs play football on Saturday afternoons, and I was so envious. And by the time I got to Roosevelt High School in North Portland, that's my first association with football anyway. So I grew up there, and I played 4 years of football and 4 years of basketball at Roosevelt and 4 years of track. I made my name basically in track as a hurdler, not in the football or the basketball arena. I was probably a sixth man in basketball, and football I was more of a defensive player than and a blocking back more or less than offense. But we had a guy that was a year ahead of me that his name was Vern Marshall, and he came down here and he played with Ad Richmond for a year. And Vern was a wild person, so he made a real good wildcat. And we figured if somebody could straighten him out like they did, I came here with, I think, one of his teammates that didn't go to college the year before, and 4 of my own teammates came down here to football. And 2 of them lasted 1 week, and they were both Shrine athletes, and they missed the big city and went home. And my roommate was a baseball player, and so he was a manager in football and played baseball, and he went one school a year and went in the Air Force, and the other one went 1 year and had to go back to work and stuff. And he came back and roomed with my brother. So 4 years after I started, my brother came, and the kid I came down here with, Luther Strong, he came back and roomed with my brother. So I was really tied into football at Linfield for 8 straight years. And Ron Parrish, our quarterback, was the same way. He was here for 4 years, and then his brother came quarterback for 4 years. So it was kind of interesting. I was one of 110 people that turned out for football for my freshman year, and I think it was the biggest squad ever. And all the upperclassmen were military veterans almost, it seemed like, when we came in. And I think we won 3 games that first year. But I started out right at the bottom of the pole, probably 10th string as a running back. But as the season went, we had JV. We had a freshman schedule or JV schedule. We played with Willamette, Western Oregon, and George Fox at that time. So we got a lot of extra experience if we can get in the games. So the first game I got in at Linfield, I did as a freshman, was against College Idaho, and they put me in a defensive back position to guard R.C. Owens. They always used to throw the alley-oop pass. I didn't have much more success than any of our other defensive backs. Was pretty short, but I was a little more springy because I'd been a hurdler and stuff, and so they tried me. And by that time, I had worked myself up to maybe third string. That's because of injuries, kids that quit and stuff. And so probably we were down to about 60 kids at this time, and that's in the squad. And I had a lot of success after that. And here's past the middle of the season, so it surprised me, and they took me on the trip to Whitman. They still had their football program there, and the fullback got hurt. I was a running back, and so he got hurt the first series, and they put me in. Here's my first game I played in, really, as an offensive back. I gained over 100 yards in that game, only because we had some good blocking. So we come back, and we're practicing on Monday, and one of the quarterbacks that's also working at receiver, he's going out for a pass from an angle over here. I'm going out for a pass here, and we collide. And it chipped an ankle bone. I spent a week in the infirmary on ice, and by Wednesday I was back. I was able to run a little bit, and I got into the sequence, and they decided to take me to Whitworth. So I got to go to the Whitworth game, and so once again, the starting fullback, and this is mainly I've been running at wing back and halfback all this season. They put me in at fullback again. I had another 100-yard. I think one was 105, one was 106. I played 3 straight years after that as a running back. Never had a 100-yard game. I was usually 65 to about 85 yards a game. I always thought that was kind of unusual here. As a freshman, I did that. So.
You set the bar too high too early is what happened.
Well, but I got to start for 3 years, and I didn't always play fullback, so I got back to the running back that I was, because I played at about 170 to 80 pounds most of the time when I was playing. Now I'm down to 140. I'm getting old.
You get you back in the weight room.
I really enjoyed. I came to school and studied journalism. But not much of a journalism department at that time, and I really appreciate what Paul Durham did. He wrote for the newspaper and coached football and stuff. And so one of the jobs I had there was clean the locker room. I cleaned one locker room, Howard Morse cleaned the other locker room, and Vic Fox had the middle section, and we cleaned that. And on Saturdays, if we had home games, we had to clean the bleachers and everything. That's part of our grant and aid work. So, and I got I didn't study too hard my freshman year, but I got involved, and I started working a little bit harder, and I got involved in the school activities and IKs, and I joined the fraternity, the Theta Chi fraternity, and the school really had an intramural program. And so I was involved in that, and that was really, I can just remember everything to do with volleyball, whether it was wrestling, and it wasn't wrestling, it was a boxing match. You had to, and I remember I had put the freshmen, naturally, they're going to get them, representing them in a weight class. Remember, I had to box Paul Ward. He was at the ATO, and he pounded the crap out of me. He's a guard, a lineman, and I'm a back, I don't even think that's funny. And I stayed with fraternity for 4 years, and I still keep in touch. In fact, my granddaughter's going with the Theta Chi now, so the oldest granddaughter is 24 now, so it's pretty good ties and throughout the years.
Tell me about your first impressions of Linfield and of McMinnville when you turned up here as a freshman.
Well, I came from high school of about 1,500, came down here about a school of about 450. So got to know everyone, and the kids came from all over the state, and Idaho, and Northern California. So, and most of them were from small schools, and really made our football team to get better. Is in my junior year we had 2 junior college transfers come in by the name of Yogi Umbarger and I don't know where names are leaving, but Howard Glenn was unbelievable at defensive end and offensive end, and so and a lineman by the name of Hal Edgar. I don't know where Hal came from, but he just happened to balance our line. So gave Dick Holliday somebody to tie up on the other side of the line, and as a freshman, there were 7 of us that lettered as freshmen. I happened to be one of those with Vic Fox and Howard Morris and Jerry Byer and Ron Parrish and Paul, and I can't remember who the 7th one was, but there were 7 of them. There were a lot of quarterbacks that came from. I know that I was in the fraternity, joined with Howard Morris and Jim Whipple. Jim Whipple came up from Drain, and all the baseball players used to go down to Drain to play baseball all the time. And they worked in the mill there and played baseball. So Linfield was, I really enjoyed. I kind of probably was looking maybe for some religion, more strength, because I didn't, probably as a senior in high school, I probably started going to church a few times with different girls that I dated. And so it quite influenced me. And when I chose a fraternity, I chose the Thetas because it was a balance between kids who were active politically, religiously, non-interest, and there are very few of us athletes in there, but there were kids that were sitting there, and Howard and I both got involved in that, and Howard and I became really close over the years. So I remember he always told me that you gave the first gift to my first daughter, he said, and he said it was a football player dressed up in baby clothes. Rubber doll. She said, my daughter still has it on the shelf, he used to tell me. So when we were seniors and we were all student teaching, Vic Fox and I and Howard, he had got married to Ginger and lived down by the president's house at that time. And we actually went there for lunch every day, and Ginger, we paid the money that we paid for the lunch system here. We gave it to her all the time and kind of helped them out, supplemented their pay, and it sure was a lot better lunch than what we might get in the cafeteria. If you can imagine what I'm saying there on that part. But I was real active in fraternity, and became fraternity president in my senior year, and stayed active with them. And probably through intramurals, what got me involved in fishing, because when I interviewed for a job as a senior, I think I went to Valset's and interviewed there. I went to Reynolds High School. They were just building it, and I was a swimming coach, which I had a background in swimming. And then I got a junior high job in Salem, which was football and basketball and half mathematics, which I had changed my major to the major in mathematics and physical education, those combination, and that was the job offer, and I smartly took that one. And so I was a brand new junior high school in Salem, and a couple of people on staff were Linfield people, so they took good care of me.
When you were planning to come to Linfield, was football always going to be something you did? Did you consider basketball, track, anything else?
I was a little interested in journalism, and I think mainly because I was a city champion in the high hurdles, and I was a good football player, more defensively than offensively. And the two running backs that were recruited and the quarterback recruited, they'd won the state championship in baseball, and two running backs were Shrine All-Stars that got beat 52-0 in the Shrine game. And Howard Morris was on that team that beat him when he was playing for Crater. And so, when we played Portland State and they transferred and went to Portland State, I remember one time I hurdled over him as he was playing defensive back, one of those kids, and he's one of my best friends still, and both of them I still run around with. And we get together for golf and lunches and stuff all the time. From those guys, basically I came down here because of them and what they'd done with Vern Marshall. And I loved the school, and offered, and I started in journalism and switched to mathematics. And then by the time I got to be about middle of my junior year, I said, my really love is sports. And so I took the minor in math, major, and I came back did my graduate studies. I did some of that, and I started the alumni football games. And first person I recruited was Ad Richmond, so playing the football game. So, and we used to be able to stay right with him. And some of you still remember Drannon Hamby. He must have played up in an alumni football game till he was 40, I think. And there was one guy in Willamette that's played in the alumni game, I think, till he was a center, and he played it even longer than Drannon did, so it was a tough time. But so I came back and got my master's degree here also. And
you mentioned your freshman year, the team we thought won about 3 games or so. Tell me about the 1956 season. About you win the league title for the first time in a long time. You start what is now the streak. Tell me about that year and what changed in 1956, if you can recall.
What I said was that we got some new additions, and a freshman came in by the name of Zell Burke, and we found a center, Cliff Allen, out of Eugene, and so it really solidified those positions. And Zell came from like Cove, Oregon, or something, like probably 6 or 8 man football. But he was built solid, and he really was able to. So we ran a lot of off-tackle plays with a lot of deception with Parrish. Parrish was such a gifted quarterback. He was like a 3-sporter, like Danny Ainge. Well, Ron played varsity baseball. He played basketball. He didn't play all 4 years, but he'd come out and he'd make the team and everything. He was very gifted athletic and came from Prineville, and so Crook County back then, I'm sure it was called. And so we just kind of molded and stayed together as a pretty good group. We didn't get anybody drafted during that time, which was pretty fortunate, I guess. So I belonged to the National Guard, so a lot of times in the summer I was involved in their activities. And as soon as I graduated, I had transferred. Vic Fox had talked me into transferring because of my math background to the artillery unit in Newburgh from the infantry unit here in Salem, and they sent me to officer candidate school. So I graduated, and I left 3 days later for officer candidate school at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And I went through their 90-day wonder program, wondered what happened in those 90 days. And got my commission, and I stayed in the Guards for 35 years. So, and I had 4 years active duty time during that time, and off and on. Worked pretty good with teaching. I knew if there's ever a war that I was going to be involved and prepared. So that I got really involved. Because of Linfield, I got involved with church activities. I didn't actually attend the Baptist church here. I attended the Westminster church here. It's a little smaller in size, and so did that and attended different group meetings once in a while. You know, I wasn't steady. I wasn't really that religious or anything, but I really became involved when I got back into Salem. I met a good Christian gal, and because I came back to a Linfield football game to watch my brother play, and my roommate had flunked German his senior year, and he had to go back to school for another year, and he was dating some girl from Salem, and I said, I don't know anybody over there, and she said, well, so she sort of fixed me up, but this girl already knew who I was. She'd come to our open house at school. She saw my picture in the school paper that her sister had brought home, and so wanted to know who that was. She came down and knew who I was when I called her for a coffee date or something like that. So that was the tie, once again, from Linfield. And she was a Southern Baptist, but we probably got married a year later, and what sold her on me is that not that I brought her over to a Theta Chi dance, but she said she'd probably never go out with me, but she'd already committed to go to a football game at Willamette the next day, and when she dropped her purse and everything rolled under the car, and I got down and crawled under the car, and my dad did the same thing. She said that's what made change things. So kind of a Linfield tie, wouldn't you say? And football, the people I worked with at Judson, there were about 4 people or 5 staff members that were football officials, and they got me into football officiating. And we had 2 teams in football for freshmen, and we at each junior high in Salem, so we had, they just built these 2 new junior highs, so now they had 4. Now they have 10, so in Salem, and so I coached there for 30 plus years, and taught math and health and physical education, and became athletic director, activities advisor, and gave up coaching basketball probably after about 20 years, but I ran basketball programs on Wednesday nights in the community and on Saturdays at the gym for the community kids. And that was all because of how much I enjoyed intramurals. And when they cut the budget and didn't have any more sports, I remember coaching soccer and cross country and taking kids down to the cross country meet. At that time when we'd get flag football teams and we'd go play a group from another school. And there were a couple of years we didn't have any athletics. So
amazing.
Yeah, so I've been a sports nut all my life. I refereed football for 50 years, and probably my highlight of that was getting to work the national championship game against William Jewell when Linfield played them up in Portland. I got to work that game. And the other one was I was working a Linfield PLU game here at Linfield, and my daughter was the homecoming queen, and my brother was escorting her, and so I came out and refereed and watched at halftime, but I had to, make sure you don't get in trouble. The only trouble I ever got refereeing football here was when I threw a 15-yard personal penalty on one of the assistant coaches. I remember I was coming over to work with basketball that fall. He came and said, "Why did you do that?" I said, I just got tired of hearing you crying in my ear every play. I was a linesman, so so I was supporting my brother, played football here, and so he was here for 4 years. I sent my 3 kids chose to come here, not that I sent them here. And then my son has sent my middle son has sent his 2 daughters here, and I don't know if the third one will come or not because she's looking at they have some schools that have adaptive physical education programs in San Diego and back in Ohio. And she works with wounded warriors and challenged athletes, and so I work with Christian athletes and Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and I still get together with retired officials on Tuesday nights, and some of the present officials go, and so we come and we talk about football plays on television and stuff like that, and the high school guys come in and they're running. And one of the guys actually, we do the football pool where, you pick all the bowl games, and it's a miracle if somebody picks that. Well, he couldn't do it because he's working for the NFL now. He's the new commissioner in Salem. I was the commissioner for 10 years, and then I turned it over to my sort of assistant, and because I basically couldn't go out and evaluate all that. I wanted to go to my son's games, and I'd only get to see about half of them and evaluate the officials that were there. I got to serve on the state rules board and became the rules interpreter for the state of Oregon for 10 years, and got to travel to Florida with OSAA, and one year we even had the winter meeting in January, imagine, is in Fairbanks, Alaska. The year before, 2 years before, we'd been in Florida, they hosted it. Now they hold it all the time in Indianapolis, where the national headquarters is. But I got to go up with the representative because I was on the rules committee, and we go through the high school rules every year and change them. And so I was head of that. And from that, we have the Officials Association has a representative on the council, along with as the athletic directors, along with the principals in the high school. So they have a little bit of input there with that. So I got a lot of beginning of a lot of things, and from the background I got here from the intramurals and the love of sports and the football program, which certainly carried over. So I love football, but in the winter I love to run around the basketball courts. And right now I've had to change to volleyball because the granddaughter's a volleyball player. Right now I have been going down to the courthouse in you call the handball courts. Well, the Olympic Committee, the Paralympic Committee has sent her a pop-up volleyball net, and the volleyball net is a little bit higher than, so I think if you're sitting, cool. And so that's why with 3 kids and 2 grandkids so far coming here, and my brother, we have quite a tie to Linfield. And
tell me about Coach Durham and about what it was like playing for him and learning from him.
Well, he just wasn't a coach. He's the one that pulled you in the office all the time and talk to you and see how you were doing in grades and help you out. And I remember Jerry Byer was, he found him, a lot of the kids didn't have money or anything. He found him a place in the fire hall, and they had that. I didn't know about these things right away. They were kept pretty secret, and they had the war housing for those veterans that had got married, and they had those things. And so I always had a good job in the summertime, so it helped me pay. And probably like $250 a term probably is what it cost. It wasn't very much back there. What's it, 45,000 now? 48?
Something like that.
So.
What did you take from Coach Durham as you went on to become a coach yourself?
A lot of organization and making the game enjoyable at the same time. So drills that made it kind of fun and yet challenging at the same time. Bring the best out of the kids. I think one of the happiest kids I ever had was a third string kid that came along, and I get him in on special teams once in a while, and some kid was breaking around, and he says, I couldn't let that kid score against us. And he says, I ran and I ran and I ran, and I caught him, and he didn't score. And we went the season unscored upon. Here's a third string kid that remembers that type of thing. And so win or lose, I always had an offensive team, a defensive team, and special teams. And so I did that from there just to get more kids. You know, I had maybe 80 kids. We started what we call it would be a JV program almost, where Mondays we would take those kids that didn't get a chance to play. And this is by the time we were just 7th and 8th grade football instead of the freshmen had moved to the high school at this time. And so when I got a couple of coaches, and we have 40 kids on that team, you know, so out of the 80 kids on the team, you still had 40. You got to play Monday, and you get them in once in a while in your games, but if you had a pretty good team, you got to play, get some chances. But if you got 3 teams, you're getting a lot of 3 groups. And I remember I run drills, I'd give them different colors, whether it was the purple team, the white team, the green team, the red team, or whatever it was, you know. They knew where to go. And so if I hadn't learned to organize, you know, and so loved coach football, and I coached basketball a lot of years too. So, but when I figured the guy that was helping me out with the 7th grade group, where I was coaching in 7th and 8th grade group, I know I was coaching the 9th grade group. I was starting to yell at the referees, and here was a referee. I thought, maybe it's time I start getting out. Let him take it over. And he did, and he did a great job with those kids. So we started out feeding South Salem High School, and then when they built Sprague High School, my kids ended up going to Sprague. So.
Tell me about your experience as an alumni, watching the Linfield football program as a fan, watching it grow, and watching games from the stands. Tell me about kind of following the program after you left.
Well, can you imagine? I don't even think I get to play today, because I weighed 170 pounds, but Zell probably weighed 10 or 15 pounds more than I did. And Parrish was probably 6'1" or 2, you know, and I was 6 foot. Now I think I'm about 5'9". It's terrible. But I'm healthy, and that's what's most important. So I just support. I come over for the music programs. The girls have been involved in music, and the a cappella group. Lindsay, I think, is president of it, and she's attending nursing school up in Portland now, but she comes back down Wednesdays and Sundays to campus and works with the singing group. And I think we went out to a concert about in November over at the food market. It was there, and then I think they did basically the same thing at the concert here too. So we didn't come back to see they were singing the same song, but Jeff and Linda come over, and so my kids are involved. So it's been good, and I've come over with I guess you'd say kids that parents have never gone to college. Avid, I think they call it in Salem. I've come over with them a couple of times in the chaperones and on the bus.
What's it like being back on campus now, that it looks the way it does now?
I'm lost. I always say, you sure that's how I get to where the dorm you're in? How can I tell it from the other dorms? I lived in Mack Hall when I was here, and we had 3 dorms that the guys stayed in, and 3 dorms that the girls stayed in. So that's basically what it was then. And then there were not too many people that could afford apartments, but it started out towards the end of mine, and then they had the war housing apartments, but later on, time my brother did, they started finding apartment housing more off campus a little bit for people that got married. So
when you started the streak, when your team started the streak, it wasn't a streak yet. At what point did that become something you were aware of?
Well, I was always proud of my own school, especially living in a town of Willamette boosters. I even joined the Cardinal Roundtable for several years, and just to see what they are. And I go to Sports Breakfast Club every Friday morning there that we honor the athletes of the week, and male and female athletes of the week. We do 2 men and 2 girls, boys and girls, I guess, not, or men and women, one or the other. So we have 6 high schools in Blanchette, 7th. And Chemawa, we got to come maybe once in a while, way back when we knew the athletic director and to their programs. And Salem Academy, I don't think we ever been able to get them involved to come down to the Sports Breakfast Club. But there's about 10 of us that continue to support that group, and Les Schwab does that, and now the Gaddy brothers have been given the Athlete of the Year awards out, and we buy them breakfast, the Athletes of the Week, each week, and so we recognize that, keep that information going. I know the Statesman Journal does something with the broad area that we just do it in the city of Salem and Kaiser, naturally.
So you're keeping it alive still. That's impressive. I'm curious what as you look back on your time playing and following Linfield Athletics, what the streak has come to mean to you and to have been a part of the start of it. What do you think about when you think about that?
Well, I just think it was a change, and the feeling we had as a group of players. I noticed that my brother was here for 4 years and played, but the size of the kids kept getting bigger and bigger. I know that. You can imagine. I was working out at the courthouse the other day and just finished up, and this 400-pound Samoan came in. I said, my gosh. And Jeff had one of those football players that came over from Hawaii last year, but the grade transfer they weren't eligible. So Jeff comes home to my wife and he said, Mom, can you enlarge these shirts? And these pants, can you put something into them to make them a little bit lighter? She worked on that, and we ended up having to go to a seamstress and have it done, and got the jersey and stuff. The kid never got eligible. And about middle of the season, he finally quit, because he couldn't play yet. And we did that. But it was too bad. That would have saved that kid, and I don't think he was only a junior, And we have to buy long pants for kids that play golf, stuff so we support that football program at North and stuff. For swimming, I was a swimmer in high school, and I gave up swimming at the end of my freshman year. There was too much to leave football practice, get on the bus, and go down to the Aero Club and swim and stuff. But I lived across the street from a swimming pool, so we swam every day and half the nights, I suppose. But and the Columbia and Willamette rivers were there for swimming too. So So I support the Kroc Center there in Salem. It's been a real addition since they've closed almost all the other pools in town. And they're rebuilding North Salem, and they've torn the gym down and everything else. And they've bought the Ollinger pool facilities, and they filled it in, and they put some kind of a floor over, but the batting cages are one end of Ollinger pool. The weight room is in the weight room's there. The batting cages are in the middle, and the PE facilities are the other maybe half of the building, and they've got those small locker rooms that were for the swimming locker rooms for their facilities for PE and for the football team, and they've got Quonset hut out there for all their equipment. So getting to work them to see that the challenges that he has there is really interesting. So I don't know, just the love of football I found from here, and the streak is something, a pride that you, something you can kind of talk with everybody about, and besides your experiences, you know, and so I don't know, it isn't a glory. Everything has been glory when you get my age, so there's so many good experiences in your life that you remember, and probably my military experiences, and from that I went into missions work with the church, and I was just talking to Kevin there about when we were in Haiti one year. It was almost unbelievable, you know, that I've been back there a couple of times since then, and rebuilding, and our kids are going, our church kids this year are going to, what town are they going in? Alaska, but they're going to Alaska to work with one of the Indian tribes. And I was reading the paper yesterday about the first census is being taken in northern Alaska. And they're doing it during the winter because they've got about 400 and some people there by the time when things thaw out, they're gone. So the population goes up to over 1,000. They come up for fishing and everything else up into that area. So trying to get the true population of the community. So that was a really interesting article to read.
What do you kind of hope for the future for Linfield and for the Linfield football team?
Well, it's been sad, you know, because we've seen football teams stop playing football, and then to see George Fox bring it back, that was great, and Pacific brought it back. And I would hope a school like Whitman would bring their program back sometime, you know. I know it's so expensive because the football helmet things and the concussion worry is put a lot of numbers. I know the last team I had in football in junior high was 80 kids. Last year they had 3 kids out for football because they had taken all the elite kids around the town and formed a Pop Warner League, and so they combined with another junior high reform team. Now they have enough back in this year to form the teams, but the numbers are going down, and it's making it tough. And the cost of the helmets, really, you know, you get 10 helmets, you get spending $3,000. It's terrible. Now, I mean, so budget-wise, it really becomes a. So I remember in junior high, we could get about 10 helmets a day, and the budget and spending your money and stuff, and so that's why they have a sports foundation, and I think they have a big one coming up February 1st in Salem. There's a retired athletic director, Brian Sutherland, that's been doing a lot of good work here. He announces the games at South Salem. He gets all the athletic directors to come and speak on what's happening at their school. At our breakfast club on Friday mornings, he's just a worker. There are several people out there like that, and earn money. And Dick Wethnell, who went through here, he's been a real sports and music enthusiast for Salem and for Linfield. So,
tell us a little bit about your equipment from back then. What do you remember about your helmets and your pads?
Well, when I first started, all I remember is they were just starting to put one ring around the helmet, but the inside was a canvas strips across the top of the helmet. But we had two boys that had concussion problems. They had the real good, fancy 19th, 20s look leather helmets that were really, you could actually feel the cushioning and the safety of those helmets. And so I went and started at junior high. We had all kinds of leather, old throwaway leather helmets were part of the equipment, and so see the evolution just in coaching itself, knowing what they've gone through at the high school level. So yeah, so that's now they don't seem to wear knee pads anymore. The knee pads were only here, and the rules always had the rules. You had to cover the knees. You had to have hip pads that covered your tailbone and your hip bones. And now they just have a pair of pads, a little piece of foam rubber, or they slip on. Tights. My wife has been involved and have to sew those things up for Jeff's football team a lot. I think my wife started that out. I taught with a teacher that was a race car driver. And his wife didn't sew. And he had a wreck, and he brought his uniform in and had blood stains on it, and it ripped, and to see if she could repair it, it was about the only. And he ended up, after teaching for about 20 years, he went back to work for Budweiser back, and then he came back out here and came back to officiating with me, and we'd work college football games up and down the coast together. I'd got him into that. So my wife has that background of sewing up football equipment, and you can imagine what she had to sew in a junior high, what I used to bring home to her. So shoes were all expensive for kids back there, and so the kid outgrew a pair of shoes to leave them with us, and we always had a lot of shoes there, so we were able to get shoes for those kids and football, and that was always good. And then, so shoulder pads are bigger, and now they've got chest protectors, and the back protectors for the flak jackets for the quarterbacks and stuff. So
it's amazing to see footage even 20 years ago of how big shoulder pads used to be versus what they are now. Guys used to look so much bigger because they had huge shoulder pads on the arms.
It's always interesting. As a coach, a junior high coach, you had all that equipment to keep junior high kids to keep it organized, and what a challenge! I had to get it issued to them and to get them fitted right, and to get it back, get it repaired. There's a love to do that, and it's tough on a person, but a person that loves football will do all that. And I remember all the pink stuff they had. They dyed everything pink, so all the guys that didn't have T-shirts or athletic supporters or socks, they didn't want to take those things. That was really funny, I think, when I went through school. Are those the good memories? No. So, football, it's just so good to say the streak, they're talking about how many people that score and stuff like that. But I worked as a stats person for the basketball team when Bill Mockmer and Jack Riley were scoring, and Howard and I did all the stats, and before they had computers and stuff, we'd have to figure all the statistics and give them to the coach the next day. So we did all the shot charts and remember how many shots they took and how many they made and stuff like that. So
that's awesome. Well, that's all the questions I have for you. Thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your stories and your history with us, and we'll go ahead and free you off the hook here.